What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another Mizzou football post-game show on my channel. My name is Josh Fan of ShowMeFootball.com, and I am joined, as always, by Braden Dowers, or also known as Show Me Baseball. So we're here to break down Missouri's 38-21 victory over the Vanderbilt Commodores on the road to move to 5-0. We both have a lot to say. But before anything, I just have to say it's a really good day because Mizzou won, Arkansas lost, Illinois lost, and Kansas lost. Great day for college football. What do you think, Braden?
I think that Mizzou, I saw your title for the stream. It said cruises past Vanderbilt. I somewhat agree with that. We were definitely on cruise control for this entire game. I think so far it's been a pretty good day for college football. I'm watching that LSU Ole Miss game right now really close because LSU's losing. And if they're 3-2 coming into Faroe off of a loss, I don't know what that really means. And I mean, LSU's going to be in they're going to be in foreign territory if they're 3-2 going into a game against a Mizzou team that could very easily be ranked above them if they don't pull off this game against Ole Miss. This is where Mizzou wanted to be, 5-0 going into the LSU game. We've had that one game every single year where it's just like, if we're undefeated going into this game, like we're having a good season. We finally have that, because I think it was in like 2019. If we were like 6-0 going into the Georgia game, you'd be feeling pretty good.
And yeah, every year was always like, if we're 6-0 going into Georgia, or if we're blank and 0 going into this game, and it would just never happen. There would be some sort of back-breaking loss along the way.
Yeah,
but Mizzou avoided that this year,
and
they're 5-0 heading into Vanderbilt. And I kind of like what Drink said after the game too, is we're 5-0, but there's a lot we can work on.
Like,
Mizzou is 5-0. And it feels like they haven't played their A-plus game yet.
No.
And when will we see the A-plus game? I don't know, but it felt like they won by double digits today, playing maybe a C+ or a B- sort of game.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they won and they covered against Vanderbilt. 38-21. Vanderbilt kind of made it close there late second half, but then Mizzou's offense went back out there, made a play when it needed to. That's what I really enjoyed about this offense today, is that anytime they needed to score, needed to get a first down, something, it seemed like they typically came up with it. There were a few times where Drink got ultra aggressive and it burned them just a little bit, like going forward on fourth down there. I want to say it was the fourth quarter, if not late third quarter, which, by the way, I'm going to address that real quick. That's the kind of play where everyone is like, oh, we want to see Drink be more aggressive. Drink is such a sissy. Like, he needs to go for it there in that spot. And then after he goes for it on fourth down there, for going for the kill shot, I see everybody saying, oh my gosh, terrible decision by Drink. And it's like, you can't have it both ways. Either you want him to be aggressive.
I'm like, you motherfuckers, like, this is exactly what you wanted 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks.
Yeah, it's complaining because of the results that we saw. It's like, if you want them to go for it, you have to live with the potential result that they don't get it. That's what comes with being aggressive. They got burned. It happens. But let's stick with discussing the offense first, and then we'll get to the defense, the side of the ball that I think is worth a little bit more discussion, but the offense definitely deserves their spotlight. So Brady Cook, after not throwing again for 300 yards in a game until this year, now his third straight game with over 300 yards passing, and today he was 33 of 41 for 395 yards and 4 touchdowns, nearly 400 yards passing for Brady Cook. He is putting together an all SEC type of season right now.
Yeah.
And I don't think a lot of Mizzou fans saw that coming at the beginning of the season, but he absolutely looks the part. And since the competition has stepped up, so has Brady Cook. And then once again, Luther Burden, what more can you say? 11 catches for 140 yards and 2 touchdowns. He legitimately deserves to be in the Heisman conversation. And even though I would not bet money on him to win it, he deserves to be sneaking onto people's lists. And not only that, I've seen him mentioned by a few credible college football analysts saying that he is their leader right now for the Biletnikoff Award for the best wide receiver in the country. And I definitely agree with that. Then Theo Weiss, awesome game from him. This was really the Theo Weiss game. 10 catches for 118 yards and a touchdown. He was an absolute chain mover. And then Marquise Johnson, Speedy Key, as he calls himself, he just continues to rack up big catches. 3 catches for 64 yards and a touchdown today. Got that last one to really put this game away. Awesome play from him. And then Mookie Cooper, who has gotten a lot of criticism in the past, 5 catches for 56 yards today, and he continues to be a menace on third down. Anytime there's a third down that Mizzou just has to have, Brady Cook seems to be looking towards Mookie Cooper, and Mookie Cooper always seems to be making the catch. So I really like to see him getting involved. And we knew that Mizzou's wide receiver room was intriguing heading into this year, but I don't know if anyone was predicting them to be this good, but they've been fantastic this year. What are your thoughts?
I think that the offense today was doing a lot of what the offense was doing against Middle Tennessee State and South Dakota in those first 2 games, but they were doing it effectively. I think we definitely saw a lot more deep shots this game than we did in those 2 games, but we reverted back to the screens, back to the we don't really want to show anything, back to those outside and inside zone runs with Schrader and Pete. And we didn't really show that much today. Like everything that we saw, we have already seen. Almost every single deep shot was a play action where Brady was just able to have a lot of time in the pocket, and he just bombed it deep to whoever was on a post route on the left. And him being able to do that just over and over again, we didn't really show anything. So we can go into this LSU game where it's just like, all right, they have absolutely no idea what we're going to do because we were able to run a bunch of the same plays over and over again effectively. We were absolutely gashing them in the running game. Cody Schrader had a lot of big runs, absolutely killed the guy in the first quarter.
Yeah.
But something that I do want to get out of the way that you didn't touch on was that we were up 31-21 with like 8 minutes left in the fourth quarter, and Vanderbilt had the ball. We eventually got a stop on 4th down, but that is not a position that we should be in where they have the ball with the opportunity to get it within 1 possession, because the drive before that, we got so conservative on our play calling, and we ran like it was an incomplete pass, then a Schrader run, then a Brady Cook run. And why we're running Brady Cook out there, like making him do running plays with his banged up knee against Vandy in these scenarios, I don't like doing that, because if you risk getting him hurt, I genuinely say that Brady Cook is a top 3 or 4 quarterback in the SEC right now. The only 2 people that I think are guaranteed ahead of him are Daniels for LSU and then Jackson Dart for Ole Miss. Those are the only 2 that I think you can for sure say. Maybe KJ Jefferson, but Arkansas's look like dog shit this year. And Jefferson hasn't really shined in any way. Devin Leary's been a bust for Kentucky, even though they're 5-0. He only had like 4 completions when Florida had like 23 points in the first half. He was like 4 for 12. So, and with Mizzou being really good at run defense, that's another quarterback that I think that we have a pretty strong advantage against. Burden was absolutely amazing, and it really shows that he had 140 yards and 2 touchdowns, and people are going to remember this as the Theo Weiss game because he had less yards and only 1 touchdown, and that's what people are going to remember this as, because that's how damn good Luther has been. It's been insane what he's been able to do, and I definitely agree that he could win the billet in the cough. And like you said, I think you got to start at least talking about him in the Heisman race, because if he has an absolutely massive game against LSU, if he goes for another 150, 160, 1 or 2 touchdowns, he's going to be number 2, number 3 on trending on Twitter if we win that game. And if we do that, it's going to be because of Luther Burden.
Yeah, and I tweeted out a comparison between Theo Weiss and Dominic Lovett so far in 2023. Now, this was in the middle of the game, so totals are a little bit different at this point. But halfway through this game, Theo Weiss was 21 catches for 236 yards and 3 touchdowns on the season to Dominic Lovett's 19 catches for 186 yards and 0 touchdowns. I'd say that's a pretty fair trade for Mizzou. Theo Weiss has been exactly what this team has needed. He's been the outside threat that has allowed Luther to move into the slot full time, where his speed and his quickness is an advantage against nickelbacks and just coming out of the slot there. You know, he's hard to cover for a lot of these defenses.
One other thing.
Go ahead.
He ran a lot of slot fades, and that's what both of his touchdowns were, if I remember.
Yeah, corner routes.
Yeah, just corner out slot fades. That's what the second one was for sure. He just kind of ran a fade route to the back of the end zone from the slot. But like we usually see him make a bunch of guys miss behind the line of scrimmage. I didn't see that many times today. He didn't really have like that. He didn't have that one play that he usually does where he makes the entire defense look silly. So for him to be able to go out there and have 140 yards without doing that again is really impressive. And
yeah,
that's,
a lot of air yards.
But yeah, I think that's a lot more showing of Brady Cook because he's been able to sling it, and there were still like a couple throws that you're like, man, you got to hit those. There was like 2 in the first half and 2 in the second half where it's like if you hit those, you got 450 yards today, which is insane to think about.
Yeah, and you mentioned
Brady could improve off of an absolutely insane start.
Yeah, and you mentioned how it was 31-21 kind of late in the game there, and Vandy was creeping back in. And one of my complaints so far is that in these games against the mediocre competition, like Memphis, like South Dakota, MTSU, you haven't been shutting the door on them completely when you've had the chance. And even though it took a little bit today, Mizzou did that. They won 38-21. That's a 17-point victory. You won and you covered, and covering is going to look good to the people who do the rankings. Mizzou actually had some style points today. So far this year, Mizzou has not really won with style points. They won with a little bit of style points today. Brady Cook throwing for basically 400 yards and 4 touchdowns. And also, we're talking about all these receivers and Luther Burden and the offense. I know Tom Cusimano of one of the news stations in St. Louis said that Ryan Wingo and his dad were watching the Mizzou game today. And if I'm Ryan Wingo, I am drooling over the idea of playing in this Mizzou offense. Now, I'm biased, but come on down, Ryan Wingo. Why not? Look what we're doing with Brady Cook and Luther Burden.
Does Brady Cook have one more year?
Yeah, he has another year after this if he wants to take it.
Just the sheer possibility of having Ryan Wingo, Luther Burden, and Brady Cook is like that's wild to think about.
Yeah, one more year of all those guys, and also it's just kind of wild to think we're like, yeah, can we get one more year of Brady Cook when it seems like everyone wanted him out the door less than a season ago? So
I didn't know if he had a year eligibility. There's no way that he's going to get drafted this year.
I mean, hey, look, we've had the conversation before. If Anthony Richardson was a first-round pick last year, why can't Brady Cook be? I mean, just logically speaking, right?
Fair.
But Mizzou, they totaled over 530 total yards of offense on the day, 395 passing, and 137 rushing. It seems like the rushing game was kind of the unsung hero today because they were very efficient, and they just didn't run the ball that much was the thing. But very efficient. They averaged 7.1 yards per play as an offense. And then a real big positive coming out of today, something that people wanted to see this team improve on from last week was the third down efficiency.
Yeah.
Mizzou was very bad on third down, both on offense and defense last week. But this week, they were 6 of 12 on third down, which is much better. They converted more than enough of those. But if there is another complaint that we do have that still seems to be popping up after every single game is the penalties. 10 penalties for 80 yards. Still got those holding calls on the offensive line, just some bad boneheaded plays. And that's why I say, it's nice that we're 5-0, but we also haven't played our best game yet. Because if we do, and if we clean up these penalties, then this team can be really, really good.
I forgot what I was going to say. Oh, yeah. So these last 2 games have definitely been like, these were the 2 trap games for us. Like you didn't want to get caught looking ahead after it. Like Memphis was a trap game because it's a neutral site. Neutral site games are weird. We're coming off of an absolutely massive win. And then Vandy's a trap game because we just get ranked. And then we have LSU next week. So we just cruised through both of those games. Memphis was definitely more of a struggle, but Vandy, like I said before, we just went on cruise control throughout this game, and I think that we got through it. There really weren't any injuries. I didn't see anybody go down. Dayon Kinley was probably the most impressive player on the defense, just shifting over to that. But do you want to start getting into the defense?
I have a couple more things. One thing that I really wanted to mention was, did you drop out on me, Braden?
No.
Or are you still there? Okay, your camera's just okay. I was making sure you didn't drop out completely.
No.
What I was gonna say though is what I'm really frustrated by is Connor Tolleson, the center. While he's been awesome this year in pass blocking and run blocking, my God, every single game there is at least one time, and it happened twice today. But at least once, every single game, Connor Tolleson is snapping the ball when Brady Cook isn't even expecting it.
Yeah,
that's got to get cleaned up ASAP because eventually
he
one of
did
those is going to
that
result in a
on
turnover.
fourth down.
Yeah, and that fourth down probably would have ended the game.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to clean that up. Just
for sure.
I don't know. Drink has got to hit on these tiny details in practice. I know he's talked about it. He talked about it in the post game. So it's not like he's unaware of it, but sometimes I just question a little bit what they're doing at practice because that's something that has to get cleaned up.
Yeah,
and that was an issue last year too. Like I know this team praised Connor Tolleson and the improvements he's made overall as a center, but my God, he's got to learn to snap the ball because that's the most basic fundamentals of playing the center position. He just can't seem to do it.
No, I mean overall the offensive line play's been solid, but that's. Like if that's our biggest issue, that and a few holding penalties that we have, I think we're in a pretty decent spot. Again, you just have to clean most of that up because the rest of the season, these next 7 games are like none of them are going to be easy. Like not a single one. Like we're not going to be able to go into a single one of these games and say, "Yeah, I think we'll be good."
Yeah,
because LSU is going to be a dogfight. Kentucky on the road. Florida is probably one of the easier ones. South Carolina, who knows? We usually do pretty good against them.
The Florida and South Carolina games will be at home this year, so that'll be nice.
Yeah, like those 2 games at home, you got to feel pretty good about. But even then, it's like they could very easily just pull some shit off and beat us.
Yeah, those are. I mean. Conference play gets tough, man. Like it's college football, weird stuff happens, and it's not always transitive property.
Yeah,
you just got to take it week by week. Got to go 1-0 each week. Mizzou went 1-0 this week. They took care of business against Vanderbilt.
They're definitely going to be inside the top 20.
Oh yeah, well, because Florida lost today, and they were ranked.
With how many teams have lost?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It'll be exciting. Obviously, you don't want them to get too caught up in the number next to the name and then just take care of business. But it'll be a fun matchup next week against LSU. And then if you win that game, look out. 6-0, you're probably going to be ranked maybe in the top 20, top 15.
Well,
at that point.
Okay, so Kentucky plays Georgia next week. Georgia looked really weak today. And with how Kentucky looked at home today against Florida, you're telling I wouldn't be surprised if Kentucky beats Georgia next week. If we beat LSU, then game day is going to be in Frankfurt for Mizzou versus Kentucky.
Yeah, I didn't think about that. That's a very strong possibility. It's not like we're missing out on our opportunity to have game day. The more you win, the more likely you are to have college game day.
Yeah.
So, we're looking kind of far ahead into the future. But point is, Mizzou took care of business today. It took a little bit, but they did shut the door on Vanderbilt when it came down to it. We'll talk about the defense. We'll transition into them, though, because they had a less than stellar performance. But again, they weren't terrible. Vanderbilt had 300 total yards of offense. Vanderbilt was
showed
only
up when they
2 of 10.
Needed to.
Yeah, Vanderbilt was only 2 of 10 on third down, actually, today.
Yeah.
So Mizzou was actually pretty good with their third down defense. That was an issue from last week. The third down defense against Memphis, not good. Today, it was good. Vanderbilt only had 14 first downs. There were a couple drives in which Vanderbilt it seemed like, especially in the second half, when Mizzou took a pretty comfortable lead, that the defense was looking ahead to LSU. That's what it looked like.
They were just kind of shooing it in, being like, all right. And then Vandy just came out, deep ball to Will Shepherd, who is a really good football player.
Yeah, I was going to say, too, Vandy deserves some credit. They have some studs at receiver. Will Shepherd, Jaden McGowan, he's kind of their all-purpose dude. He does a little bit of everything, and he didn't play today.
LSU
But their true freshman, Lendon Humphreys, he's really good. I know he didn't play today, but Vandy deserves some credit just because their offense really is not that like their passing offense has actually been kind of decent this year. If I look at their point totals real quick, I mean, they scored 28 against Kentucky. They scored 37 against UNLV. They scored 20 against Wake Forest. Not that much, but I mean, like their offense, I mean, and they scored 47 against Alabama. And
yeah,
like, it's not like their offense isn't completely inept. Like, it's not like them putting up, I mean, we still held them to less points than Kentucky did.
Yeah. I think that they had a defensive touchdown against Kentucky, if I remember. But I mean, that's besides the point. The defense, like they weren't on their A+ game, and I think that that's what we were expecting a lot of this year. But if you look back to Mizzou defenses before Blake Baker, this is a game where they let up 35 and we only win 38-35. So like we're still in a pretty, like for 21 points and 2 of them being late touchdowns where the defense was clearly not giving 100%. Like if that's our biggest issue, then I think we're sitting pretty good because they, especially in that K-State game, they showed up when they needed to. They made all the stops that they needed to. None of them played bad. So they've proven that they're able to handle the pressure. LSU is going to be that next test. So
what I'm going to keep pointing to,
really.
What I'm going to keep pointing to is the K-State game because that was the first game this year where this team really had to get up. Like what we were worried about against like Memphis and Vanderbilt was that letdown, like you're overlooking your opponent. And it kind of seemed like as much as they wanted to tell everyone that they weren't, it did kind of seem like they were overlooking those 2 opponents just a little bit.
I mean, how can you not? Like, they definitely were, but that doesn't matter because you still went out there and you took care of business and you covered in both games.
Yeah, and like it just seemed like the defense, they played like they were looking forward to LSU in week 6. That's just what it looked like. And it felt like definitely late in this game, that's what they were doing. And really, you can attribute most of Vanderbilt's points to the safety play of Mizzou. That's just
Joseph Charleston is a kind of
he was rough. He was rough. And we saw a lot of Marvin Burks, the true freshman in week 1.
Lot more of him.
I would make that switch and live with the results because he was awesome early on, and I would rather have him out there than Charleston as the deep safety and just see what happens, man. And then Trevez Johnson was a little rough today too. He got burned deep on I think it was one of Shepard's touchdowns. So really, it's one position group that if you just fix them, then this defense looks a whole hell of a lot better. The rushing defense was still absolutely fantastic today. They held Vanderbilt to 41 yards rushing. They had 259 yards passing, which you want to get that number down a little bit. But they did their job and they clutched up at the right times. And I will say that there was even a point in the game where Vanderbilt went for it on 4th down and they converted on a broken coverage. But Johnny Walker, the defensive end, was a heat-seeking missile coming in for the sack and got held. Yeah. He got held, man. Like the rest cannot miss that. And then it didn't matter because Chris Abrams-Draine got the interception, like literally the play after, which was kind of
ball don't lie.
Yeah, it's like they should have been called for holding last play, but hey, we get the ball back. And then Chris Abrams-Draine deserves a shout out because he's been having an awesome season. Has now recorded an interception in 3 straight games for the Missouri Tigers. I mean, look, this defense is not perfect. He had 3. Yeah. This defense has not been perfect. They've had the rough patches, but I'm going to keep pointing to the K-State game. And when they were asked to stand up tall to the occasion, they did just about every time. And you have to credit them for that 3rd down stop on K-State's last offensive drive in the K-State game that gave Mizzou the ball back so they could set up the Harrison Mevis game-winning field goal. Like, the defense could have easily rolled over there. K-State runs out the clock instead, and they kick a game-winning field goal. But instead, Mizzou held up. And I just think next week against LSU, this team knows what that game means for this season. The defense is going to come out, and they're going to look really good. And if there's another concern I had about them, it's just I feel like the pressure from the defensive line isn't there. But they were without Darius Robinson today, who's their best player on the defensive line. So all things considered, they weren't perfect, but they got the stops when they needed to. They clutched up at the right times. And I'm not too concerned, but I'm also not going to argue with anyone that says this defense isn't as good as last year, because so far they haven't looked as good as last year, but
Definitely.
they're good enough to win games. I think people are so used to the dominance from the defense last year that they're kind
because
of
the defense had to
overlooking.
step up in every single game.
Yeah. And so I feel like today is what you would call a pretty good defensive performance, but people are going to think the defense was terrible because they were just so used to the dominance from last year. But it really offsets because this offense has taken such a huge step forward.
Yeah, like the step forward that the offense and Brady Cook in particular has taken is leaps and bounds over what I expected. We just said that if Brady Cook can just if this offense can have a pulse, that is what you said like at least 100 times before the season started. If this offense has a pulse, Mizzou can go 7-5, 8-4 this year. This offense has way more than a pulse, and while the defense hasn't looked great, or hasn't looked as good as it was last year, they're still in a pretty good spot. LSU game is going to be the most telling game of the year because I came on last week and I said, after just looking back on it at least a little bit, I think that the K-State game is a little bit fluky, and there was definitely a bunch of missed opportunities by K-State, and there's some boneheaded plays by us, and we got extremely lucky in certain scenarios. And for that game to come down to a 61-yard field goal, that's never a situation that you want to put yourself in. But so I think Malik Neighbors, Jaden Daniels, it's going to be by far the biggest test that we're going to have all year. I'd say that Daniels is probably the best quarterback in the SEC. He's one or two. Jackson Dart's really good too. And Malik Neighbors is rivaling Luther Burden for best wide receiver, arguably in the nation, because he's been absolutely stellar as well.
Yeah,
so Chris Abrams-Draine can lock him up, and our defensive line can get enough pressure on Daniels, and our linebackers can stop him whenever he does scramble. I think that we'll be in a pretty good spot.
Yeah, and you have another week to get healthy too, because I know there were some guys that were playing banged up today. Mizzou's injury report was pretty lengthy heading into this one. And then again, Darius Robinson was absent. It's going to be huge to have him back next week against LSU. It's going to be quite the head-to-head matchup, man. You got Brady Cook versus Jaden Daniels, Malik Neighbors versus Luther Burden.
I mean, and LSU's defense has been just outright bad. I mean, especially today, because they let up 31 points in just the first half.
Yeah, I can actually pull up the stats real quick. I know the game's still going on, and I know they just took the lead. But they've given up 429 total yards of offense to Ole Miss today, and we're still in the third quarter.
Jesus.
Ole Miss is averaging 8.9 yards per play right now.
Yeah. And I think I'd say that Mizzou and Ole Miss's offense have been relatively similar to this point this year.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be exciting. We'll have to await the results of this game to see if LSU is even still ranked number 13. But it's going to be a ranked matchup most likely next week.
I mean, even if LSU does lose this game, I bet that they're ranked 23, 24, 25.
Oh, yeah, I think they'll still be ranked, but, I mean, crazier things have happened. But I got to say, I'm so pissed that they gave us an 11 a.m. kickoff for that one. How lame.
Honestly, it really works out for me because I'm fine with waking up early and driving down there. And then, looking at the 2 o'clock slate of games, usually when people say that a window of games is just dog shit, there's usually some good games. There's going to be no good games in that 2 o'clock window that I care about. So if we're celebrating on the field, then I won't be missing anything. If I'm pissed off and driving, I won't be missing anything. Probably doing the post game with you. It's going to be a really fun, can't wait to just go there and just see what happens, really.
Well, and that said, thinking about an 11 a.m. kickoff, Mizzou is always getting stuck with those 11 a.m. kickoffs. That's early in the day, man. Like if you're the team, you're having to probably get up at what 8, 9 o'clock for these 11 o'clock
You're
kickoff games.
you're getting up at 6 or 7.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, probably earlier than that. But with that said, you could catch LSU sleeping because Mizzou is so used to these 11 a.m. kickoff games.
Yeah.
Like this is what Mizzou
I mean,
does.
the
They
last
play
time we
games at
played
11 a.m.
the last time we played them at home at 11 a.m.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when we played them during the COVID year, Drink's first season.
Yep. And
that
we
was an
didn't even
11 a.m.
have a
kickoff.
sold out Faroe Field that year.
Nope. It should be worth noting though that game doesn't happen if not for the I think it was a hurricane that was hitting Louisiana, and that's why the game got moved. But
yeah,
I should say though, Mizzou has a chance to be 2-0 against the LSU Tigers with Eli Drinkwitz as head coach next week.
Think about an
that.
Absolutely wild thought.
Yeah, then Connor will really be squirming.
Oh, he said the Drink had to get to 8 wins. Yeah, 3 more. We got to go 3-4.
See, what Connor doesn't realize, well, he probably realizes now, especially since I said it in the group chat, but Drink to be drinking 6 to go 6-6 again this year, he would have to go 1-6 the rest of the season. That is not happening. There is absolutely no way that happens. And like just on a serious note, looking at this season, it's damn near impossible to think of a scenario in which Drink is not the head coach of Missouri next year and that this team doesn't win at least 7 games. All we were asking was for this year to be a step forward. 7 wins would be at least a step forward. Now, at this point, I would predict.
At this point, games. 7 wins is disappointing.
Yeah, 7 wins is definitely disappointing at this point, but Drinks is still safe if he only wins 7.
Yeah.
But what I was going to say is like 8 wins is probably what I'm predicting. That should probably be the expectation. Now, you like Kentucky, South Carolina, Tennessee, Florida, like you should probably at least split that. And if you're splitting that, you're probably going to get to 8 wins. And then there's Arkansas at the end of the schedule. And honestly, Sam Pittman might not even make it to that game.
That's the game you almost have to win with how
Arkansas,
terrible Arkansas has been.
And then look, call me crazy, but I'm not going to rule out this team beating Georgia. I'm just not that impressed by that.
Georgia has been like there has not been a single half that they have looked good. Let me rephrase. Every single first half of every single game, they have not looked good. Like they've pulled away in the second half against Cupcakes, but today Auburn had a shot at the end.
Yeah.
Like they had the ball down 7 in Georgia, like around the 50-yard line.
Yeah, they missed their shot, Auburn. It's a shame. But yeah, man, I mean, the ceiling for this season is really high. So took care of business. You're 5-0 heading into LSU. This is what everyone wanted. We'll look forward to next week. But did you have any more comments to say about this game? I really don't have too much else to say. I mean, sure, Mizzou had its bad moments in this game, but in the end, they won and they covered. And there's good things to say about both sides of the ball.
For sure. I think while I am a little bit skeptical of the defense, and I think that K-State might have been a little bit fluky, I do feel like genuinely, I do feel decent going into the LSU game. I could see us getting absolutely blown out against them. And then Connor finally says something again for the first time. And
he's going to come out of hiding for the first loss of the season.
He's going to come out of hiding for the first time since Middle Tennessee State. So either that happens or we play them close and we either win or lose.
He also did say if we beat LSU, then he'll talk. He said that if we win 8 games, then he'll talk. But he also said that if we beat LSU, then he'll talk. So I don't know, guys. Let us know down in the comments. You want to see Connor on here if we beat LSU? Because I will gladly try to get him on. I don't know if he will get on if we beat LSU. He might be too pissed off. But
he might be there too.
Yeah. Then it would be pretty much impossible for him not to be on there. But I'm kind of hoping he stays away from Pharrell for that game because he's just kind of a bad omen.
No matter what, I think the Tigers are going to win next weekend.
Yeah. Well, that's one that we haven't heard 100 times already.
Yeah. That definitely hasn't been said before.
But we'll go ahead and wrap it up there. But any closing thoughts from you?
Not really anything too much. Make sure to go follow Show Me Movies. I've been pretty consistent with posting stuff over there. Josh needs to get back on that.
Yeah, I've been lacking in the movie game, but yeah,
next
you guys can check that
weekend
out.
in Columbia is going to be fun because they got that game, the basketball game at the Columns. I still might show up for that.
Yeah, Mizzou Madness, isn't that what it's called?
Yeah.
It'll be a fun weekend next weekend. It'll be Braden's fun weekend yet again.
Yes, this weekend's been a pretty good weekend too.
Yeah, the last few weekends have been pretty good.
Really since K-State, every weekend's been a fun weekend.
Yep, it will continue to be a fun weekend as long as Eli Drinkwitz and the Tigers keep the ball rolling. But we're gonna go ahead and finish up there, guys. So for those of you still watching, and for those of you watching even after the fact we went live, make sure you like, share, and subscribe so more Mizzou fans can find this. And you can also check out my work on showmefootball.com. But with all that being said, we will see you in the next one. MIZ.
ZOU.